Right now, the entire world is watching a handful of companies. Trillions of dollars in market cap, sitting on maybe 5 or 6 names. You know them. NVIDIA, Microsoft, the usual cast. But almost nobody is watching the company that makes the salt. And to be clear, I don't mean the salt you put on your fries. I mean the salt of the electronics world. A component so small, so cheap, and so incredibly boring that you have never once thought about it. I hadn't either, which is a fantastic look for someone who makes videos about this industry. There are about 1,000 of these tiny ceramic specks inside your phone, but a single AI server needs around 440,000. And the company that makes them, their stock just went up roughly 1,000% off its low. So here's the question this whole video is about. The AI boom is real. The money is real. But who actually gets to capture it? Who can even play? Because the answer is much stranger than the big tech companies win, and it starts in places you would never look. Let's start with the salt. The component is called an MLCC, a multi-layer ceramic capacitor. Every device with a chip needs a pile of them to keep the electric power steady. And the company having the absolute run of its life making them is Samsung Electromechanics, or SEMCO, world number 2 behind Japan's Murata. For years, the market priced SEMCO as a boring phone part supplier. Then, the story changed. AI servers and electric vehicles need vastly more of these than phones do. Just one EV uses more than 10,000. SEMCO's automotive MLCC business crossed 1 trillion won in a single year, and the stock re-rated from phone supplier to AI play, up around 1,000% off its low. That's the pattern. Now, watch how weird it gets. This is Toto. Toto makes toilets. Genuinely high-end toilets. The kind with the heated seats and the built-in air fresheners. I had a whole series of puns ready here about curing liquidity crises, but I deleted them to spare us both the secondhand embarrassment. But here's the actual fact. Inside Toto's most profitable operation right now is not a toilet. It's the electrostatic chuck, a precision ceramic plate that holds the silicon wafer perfectly flat while lasers carve circuits onto it. Toto became very good at ceramics by making bathroom fixtures for 100 years, and that same skill turned out to be exactly what a semiconductor fab needs. The chuck business is reportedly now its largest, most profitable division. And this is Ajinomoto. Ajinomoto invented MSG, the seasoning. Yes, the white powder that makes your takeout delicious and makes my cooking taste like it was prepared by someone who actually knows what they're doing. While doing the chemistry on flavor, they developed a unique insulating film. It's called ABF, Ajinomoto Buildup Film, and it sits between the microscopic layers of every high-end chip substrate on Earth. Their global share is over 95%. The operating margin on their electronic materials business is over 50%. An MSG company quietly owns a near monopoly on a material the entire chip industry depends on. It sounds completely made up. I checked. It is not. 2 more, faster. There's one town in North Carolina, Spruce Pine, population around 2,000, that supplies somewhere between 70 and 90% of the world's high-purity quartz. Every silicon ingot on the planet is pulled inside a crucible made from it. When Hurricane Helene hit in September 2024 and shut that town down, the entire semiconductor supply chain held its breath. Which means our high-tech AI future is currently backstopped by a town you could drive through without noticing. And then there's the least glamorous winner of all, the electrical transformer, the boring gray box on the power pole, the one you only notice when a squirrel makes a bad life decision and knocks out your power for a weekend. AI data centers need enormous amounts of power, which means enormous amounts of grid equipment, and the lead time to get a large transformer is now around 128 weeks, over 2 years. GE Vernova, which makes them, nearly doubled in 2025. Siemens Energy roughly quadrupled the year before. Here's what ties these together. None of them are flukes. They're mostly old, diversified, patient companies, the kind that reinvest for decades and get fanatically good at one unglamorous thing. That structure quietly mints hidden champions in niches nobody else wants. A toilet company, an MSG company, a salt maker. And this is the important part. This, the suppliers, the pick and shovel edge, is the part of the boom you can still actually enter. Now, look at the center. The center of the AI boom is not open. It is walled off. Building frontier AI infrastructure cost the hyperscalers around $260 billion in 2025. The plans for 2026 are closer to $700 billion. Globally, maybe 5 companies can write checks at that scale. Training a single frontier model generation costs upward of $1 billion, and there are roughly 5 labs that can. This isn't winner take most, it's entrant take none. There is no on-ramp. A new lab can't be funded into existence anymore, it can only be acquired. So how do even the 5 giants pay for it? Increasingly with other people's balance sheets. Look at capital spending as a share of revenue. For a software company, that number is normally small. For Meta, it's now 55%. Microsoft, 54%. Alphabet, 44%. Amazon, 26%. Those are the ratios of a railroad or an electric utility, not a software company where teenagers do dance challenges. Meta signed a $27 billion data center deal financed with the private credit firm Blue Owl, keeping it off its own books. The Financial Times has started calling the whole thing a $3 trillion building boom. And then there's the part that should make you tilt your head. In the autumn of 2025, the deals started pointing back at each other. NVIDIA announced it would invest up to $100 billion in OpenAI. OpenAI committed around $300 billion to Oracle for cloud computing. AMD gave OpenAI a warrant for roughly 10% of AMD, in exchange for OpenAI buying AMD chips. NVIDIA backstopped CoreWeave, which buys NVIDIA chips. Microsoft owns about 27% of OpenAI, which spends $250 billion on Microsoft's Azure. Draw the arrows, and the money goes in a circle. It is the financial equivalent of trying to lift yourself up by pulling on your own shoelaces, which works fine right up until someone asks you to actually put weight on it. Sequoia called this the $600 billion question. Where's the actual revenue to justify it? Bain estimated the industry could be short around $800 billion a year by 2030. But here's the honest catch, and it matters. Most of those headline numbers are not cash that moved. The $100 billion from NVIDIA to OpenAI was a letter of intent, reportedly unsigned, with essentially $0 deployed. These are ceilings, commitments, up to. The gap between what was announced and what was actually spent, that gap is where the mirrors live. Now, the fair counterweight, because credibility matters more than a clean story. The revenue is real. It's just young. OpenAI is past $20 billion a year in recurring revenue. Anthropic is around $9 billion. NVIDIA's data center business clears more than $50 billion a quarter and is completely sold out. Both things are true at once. A genuinely enormous, fast-growing business and a financing structure that increasingly leans on itself. That tension is the story. So, back to the question. Who actually captures this boom? 3 groups. The roughly 5 giants who own the wall. The adjacencies who supply it. The salt makers, the toilet company, the MSG company, the transformer makers, and the financiers whose balance sheets carry the buildout. Those 3 capture it. Everyone else is downstream. New entrants who can't get in. Most ordinary companies. And, this is the uncomfortable one, a lot of white-collar workers. Let me do this part carefully because it's the easiest place to overclaim. AI capital spending has quietly become the marginal driver of U.S. growth. JP Morgan estimates it added more than a full percentage point to GDP in the first half of 2025, outrunning the American consumer. Hundreds of billions a year, and a large slice of it goes to GPUs. That's a return to capital, not to wages. A Stanford study found that workers aged 22 to 25 in the most AI-exposed jobs saw their relative employment fall about 16%, and that's headcount, not pay, which is great news for any 22-year-olds out there who already have 15 years of professional work experience.
But, and this is the counter you don't usually hear, the Yale Budget Lab and a worker-level Danish study found no broad displacement across the macroeconomy yet. So the honest version isn't the robots took the jobs. It's narrower and quieter. The bottom rung, junior hiring, the entry-level door, is being pulled up while the building keeps getting taller. Which leaves one last question, and I'm definitely not going to pretend to know the answer. Every big technological boom runs a similar cycle. A big claim, a massive pile of money, a period of quiet panic when the revenue doesn't show up immediately, a shakeout, and then, finally, the actual useful stuff that sticks around. But trying to figure out where we are in that cycle right now is like trying to guess the ending of a movie when we're only 10 minutes in. I'm just an observer here, watching these weird puzzle pieces, toilets, MSG, and electrical grid boxes, and thinking, how on earth did we get here? So, is the AI build-out still mid-surge, or are we standing closer to the reckoning than anyone wants to admit? I don't know, but I do know who's built to survive either way. The ones who own the wall, the ones who supply it, and the ones holding the paper. Everyone else is still loading. I'm going to keep looking into these weird corners of the economy. If you want to figure it out together, hit subscribe. The channel is still loading, but we're getting there. Let me know in the comments, who do you think actually captures the boom? I'll see you there.